So welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So for today's talk, I'd love to talk with you about the moon and the mind and creative imagination. So we'll be exploring that today before meditation. Just a few announcements before we begin. So next weekend there will be an at-home online retreat that you're all more than welcome to attend. KYA member Ryan Kurzak has organized that retreat, and there's many members of our alliance that will also be offering and speaking during that retreat. Ryan Strong, Pascal Chambers, Chris Sartan, and Ryan Kurzak will all be making offerings and teachings during that time. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to bring in the change from spring into summer, to take some time to retreat and reflect. So hopefully that you can join us. That would be wonderful. You can register for that in two different ways. You can either go to the KriyaYogaAlliance.com website, or you can go to Ryan Kurzak's website to register, KriyaYogaOnline.com. And so that will be from June 27th to June 30th. And the second announcement, so during that retreat, Ryan Kurzak will also be offering the KYA online meditation and talk, but it will be at 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time next Sunday. So for those of you living on the West Coast, go ahead and get up early. It's actually a beautiful time to receive teachings and meditate. So if you're able to do it, please join us bright and early. Okay, so those are the announcements for now. Just so you know, too, all the past talks that we've given in this alliance are on our YouTube channel. And so if you'd ever like to revisit anything that we've talked about, you're more than welcome to do that. Go to YouTube, and if you do a search for Kriya Yoga Alliance, that will bring you to our channel. And then you're welcome to revisit any of those talks. So for today, when I was preparing for the talk, I have a practice that I believe I started to share with some of you in some of the past talks that I've given. I have this practice where each day I look at the quality of the moon. And this practice was taught to me by one of my teachers, Maya Tawari. And there's this practice of, as we know, the moon is constantly changing, right? Its reflection of sunlight constantly changes every day and a half to 2 days or so. And this is embodied by different nityas, or moon goddesses, that are given for each phase of the moon. And these qualities, there's different set of qualities and shaktis, or powerful gifts that are imbued with each phase of the moon. And so each nitya, or a moon goddess, has a specific quality. And so I use that time, I visit the nitya of the day, and I revisit what her qualities are, and then just do a little bit of self-reflection of how I might embody some of those qualities, or those qualities may come through for the day. So when I was preparing for the talk, I looked up the nitya, or the moon goddess of that day, when I had started to contemplate what I'd like to share today. And so the nitya of that time her name is Bhaga Malini, and her shakti, or her power, her essence that she offers to us, is fertility, or creativity. And so then just pondering that, I mean, that's a very expansive type of quality. You can go to so many places with that. So I was thinking about creativity. I was talking with my partner Ryan Strong about it, and we sort of were then discussing about Mr. Davis's offering of the technique of creative imagination. So thought it would be really fun today to just explore qualities of moon and manas, or mind, that we all imbibe and inhabit. And then how we can apply our qualities of moon, specifically imagination, to a technique, a creative imagination technique, in order to bring fulfillment and upliftment in our own lives. So just to talk a little bit more about some of the qualities of moon. And in the Vedic science of Jyotish, which is the study or science of light, it's one of the Vedic branches, one of the Vedic sciences. Jyotish is Vedic science, the study of light, the study of planets. Vastu is another branch, which is the arrangement of spaces to uplift our lives. There's also the branch of Ayurveda, the Vedic science of Ayurveda, which is life knowledge, or how we can create longevity, health, and wellness in our life so that we can fulfill our own personal path of service. And then there's so Jyotish, Vastu, Ayurveda, and yoga. Of course, yoga, under which Kriya Yoga falls. So yoga, that is the union of small self with large self. So just to go back to talking about what moon is, in all of the Vedic sciences, there's this understanding of microcosm and macrocosm. So what's within us is also without, and vice versa. There's ultimately no separation or difference between the two. So moon, when we are looking at that in Jyotish, that in our own personal connection to moon, individualized connection to the moon, we're looking at what is your personal relationship to your emotions, your emotional self, and how you perceive and take in the world through your senses, your five senses. How do you experience life? It's a really important quality, our own personal moon quality. Just to give you an example, two people growing up in the same family with a very similar circumstance of either wealth or poverty, that kind of thing. If their individual moon quality is quite different from each other, like how they perceive the world through their senses, they're going to have a much different understanding of what life might be for themselves. So just to talk a little bit more about moon, it's our mind, our manas. So it's how we take things in through our senses, and also how we use our organs of action outward into the world. So our moon, our manas, our mind, is an incredibly important tool. It's something that we can be pulled around by, though, if we're not conscious. We're not conscious of the tendencies of our mind. So some other qualities of our mind or moon, it's, like I said, our sensitivity, how sensitive we are to the world, or insensitive. It's our receptivity to things. It's also, the moon also represents our desire for change. So it's a really important quality that we have. Desire for change and new experiences. And our manas, our mind, which is a very specific part of our moon, that is really how we take in the world and then how we act in the world. It's the interrelationship between the two. So one gift, one of the many gifts that Mr. Davis has given us, is this technique of working with creative imagination. Our moon is our imagination. It's how we imagine things in our mind. Just this morning, my daughter, she's with me this morning, and she has very vivid dreams, and it's really fun to hear. You know, I always ask her, I'm like, oh, what did you dream about? Did you have any dreams? And she's a particularly imaginative person, like most children are, right? I think that's one of the qualities when I think of children. I think of how vivid and wonderful their imaginations are. And since we were all children, we have to remember that we all have that gift of imagination that's really important to continue to nurture. And so she had a dream. She was describing her dream to me, and it involved this really elaborate house. She described all the details of this as a friend's home that she was going to visit, that had these like slides that went from the top floor down to the bottom floor, and it was very elaborate. And then she told me that she was then going to build it, out of Legos. And I thought that was a really wonderful example of taking something in your imagination and then bringing it forth into the world. It's a really wonderful natural exercise that children often do. And using the creative imagination technique, it's kind of like that. It's a little bit like that. So I was all about it, her, taking her dream and then starting to build it and create it in Legos. And it's something that's very natural to children. So in Mr. Davis's book, here, I'll show you I have this really old copy, but I'll show it to you. I'm holding it together, but how you can use the technique of creative imagination to see your dreams come true. It's such a helpful book and very practical. It's a very practical book to uplift your life and to create that life where all of the attainments of life can be fulfilled. And just to go over what these attainments are that are available to everyone, to have a life that is prosperous, to have a life that is living according to your own personal path of experience, your own personal powerful path of experience. To have a life where your senses, or you enjoy life through your senses, through all of your senses. And of course, to have a life where you become self-realized. You remember your true self is not separate. And so in his book, he describes this basic substance that is comprised of 4 things. This basic substance is inherent in all of life, and it's comprised of time, space, light particles, and creative energy. And so in order for us to have this life experience, we kind of need these parameters of time and space to kind of hold us in a little bit. And so this fabric, this basic substance of life, it can be shaped by our impressions of thought. So just to ponder that for a moment, we can think about our thoughts actually impress upon life and shape it, or we can shape it. Now we can do that unconsciously, or we can do it consciously. And so, as yogis, I believe it's part of our responsibility to do it consciously. And we all have, I believe everyone here has that inherent desire to really want to be conscious and to live life effectively. So I really love that. I love that there's this idea of this actual substance that we impress upon with our thoughts. So just to kind of ponder for a minute, tendencies of thoughts that we may encounter in our lives. And some of you, I'm sure, have done a lot of work around this, a lot of awareness around this. But I thought it might be helpful to revisit some of these ideas, some habits of thought that we can find ourselves dealing with. And you may notice this, when you first started to meditate, or if you're someone here today that's a little bit newer to meditation, you may notice in the beginning, when you first start to meditate, you might notice that there's certain tendencies of thought that your mind goes towards. One of them is fantasy. And when I'm talking about fantasy, my description of it would be kind of like an unrealistic, improbable, impossible type of scenarios that you create about the present or the future. And they're often used to avoid discomfort or pain. So that's what I mean by fantasy. We're kind of like things that are impossible, but we use these thoughts, these images as a way to escape our lives. So that's not necessarily helpful in the long term as a habit. Another habit of mind would be something that we call rumination. And so rumination, that's more like the seemingly unending replaying of past events. It can be like a repetitive kind of thinking, or dwelling on negative feelings and distress and their causes and consequences. And it's kind of like, I've definitely had to deal with that myself. It's just replaying over and over in your mind an event. And it's sort of like your mind wants to find some sort of end point, but there's no way to do that when your mind is ruminating. It's like a replay. It's like an endless maze. And so in the beginning stages of meditation, you may notice that your mind has a tendency for one of these habits or not, but you may have that. And so what I ask you to do, if you're noticing that that's happening for yourself, it can be in the beginning stages of meditation, but it can certainly be in life in general, is to begin to strengthen those powers of observation, self-observation, and notice is there a negative thought pattern that you find yourself, self-talk that you're ruminating, or you're feeling that comes up a lot. And notice that you have the thought, and then either by taking a long, deep inhalation and exhalation, allow that to move on, go for a walk, change what you're doing at the moment to invite your mind to shift. However, there's a third habit that we can really nourish and nurture. And that third habit of mind, when we bring awareness and consciousness to it, is our imagination. And so that is the place that we can use our mind as a really strong tool. It can be a very helpful, vivacious place. So working with our imagination is really where we as yogis can begin to improve our life. So imagination is using our creative abilities to picture what is wanted in the present moment. It fulfills and uplifts our life. And so in Mr. Davis's book, he really supports us to get ourselves into that conscious state of mind where it's a present moment state of mind where you're both thinking and feeling something to be true, something that you desire. If you are able with your imagination to picture it in your mind, and then also with your emotional state, feel what it feels like to have these desired situations in your life. When you can get into that present moment state of the mental picture and feeling it to be true, then you're using the creative imagination technique to the fullest. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about the creative imagination techniques before we go into meditation today. And there's four major steps. And some of you, of course, are very familiar with this technique. And you may be at the point now where it's part of your life. You're doing it all the time without much effort. But as you know, sometimes these things can fall off. So it's like, okay, maybe it's time to revisit this practice in a deeper way. So there's four major steps to this technique. I'll go over them briefly. If you haven't read the book yet, absolutely, please get the book. But the four major steps. Number one is to allow yourself to get into a state of relaxation. And so just by getting into that state of relaxation, that's a kind of a softening quality. So it allows the quality of the mind to become more pliable, malleable. So getting into a state of relaxation is very important. So for some people that might be going for a walk first, or doing some breath techniques to allow yourself to relax. Sometimes I'll do this technique seated. Sometimes I'll be lying down. You just want to be relaxed and comfortable. So that's the first step. The second step is to then create. So this is the really fun part. This is when you use your imagination to create the mental picture in as much detail as possible of something that you would like to fulfill your life. So, and I can give you an example of something that I practiced a few years ago that really it was really, it was amazing to see it manifest, really amazing. And sometimes I'll do something really small, just kind of for the fun of it, to see what happens. For example, my daughter is getting to the point where trying to encourage her to prepare food more and working with knives, which makes me a little, as a mom, just makes me a little worried, to have her start cutting with knives. She asked me for a snack, and that involved cutting fruit. And so I said yes, and usually I'm right with her when she's doing that, but I just took a moment to imagine her cutting the fruit and putting everything together and coming up to me with a certain expression, a smile on her face, and showing me. And so I sat there and did that, and lo and behold, that's exactly to the T, all the details, that's what happened. Her expression, how she showed me, like she took the bowl and showed me out of pride, she showed me what it looked like. And it can get a little bit like, wow, that was very specific to what I had imagined, but it was a really positive moment because it allowed her to do something independently. But the mental picture is a really important part. So think about the details. Think about how you'd feel in that situation or with that desire fulfilled. Really feel it. Think about the wholeness and completeness of that. And if you feel like some people have a more easeful time with that step, with the imaginative part, some people feel like, I can't picture things in your mind. You can do practices to help with that. For example, look at an object with your eyes open and then close your eyes and imagine it a different color, for example. And that can help hone those abilities if you feel like that's not your strong point. And just by doing that, that will help hone that ability. So that's the second step, is to create the mental picture of the thing that you desire, the situation you desire. And then the third, which I've talked about before, you want to experience that mental picture fully in the present moment as if it's happening right now, both in your mind and emotionally. That's a really potent point. That really helps to coalesce the thing to be. And then number 4, the fourth and final step, is wonderful. You get to take a nap. You get to, or relax in some way. So again, it's allowing, gives your body a chance to dissipate any negative thought patterns or beliefs, allow that to dissipate and move away, and allow this new mental image and experience to coalesce within yourself. And so it's great. It's like relax and then relax. So relaxing is a really important part of it. To stay open, to stay pliable, to be receptive like the moon with this practice. Just to give you another example, another story of using creative mind. Several years ago, I was in a place where my finances were very tenuous, very tenuous. I was going through a lot of changes. I had needed to move out of my home, and I had a deadline of moving out of my home, and didn't know where I was going to move. Didn't know how I was going to gather the finances because there were a lot of things up in the air. And so, wow, was that an opportunity to use creative mind? And so I spent time first trying to relax, getting into the state, imagining my new home, what it would look like. Now, it's very practical. It's like you don't want to be fantastical about things. Kind of imagine myself living in a mansion or something like that, or a castle. I imagined very specifically what would feel good, what would work for me, not be too overwhelming, would be within my means, all of these things. And I live in a place where inventory of houses is incredibly low. Like, it's just hard to find houses. And also at the time, within my price range, it was on the more humble side. But I had really wanted to live in this specific town because it's close to nature and I just really love it. So I imagined everything, and everything just lined up. So everything started to unfold. The finances came in like a few days before I had to apply for the mortgage. It was very, very, very last minute. but everything did come together for me. And the home that I imagined came to be. It was the only house that was listed in my town. The only house. And I was able to afford, this is like during the pandemic, and it was a really wild time, really wild. But it was really, to have that gift of creative imagination, and to see it unfold, it was really a gift for me. And so I invite you to work with your tendencies, to notice if you have any tendencies of mind that you tend to go towards, and to, in place of those challenging tendencies, every day to make a commitment to work with the creative imagination techniques. I believe it's part of our duty to do that as yogis. There comes a point in time where when you start practicing this creative imagination technique, it can feel more difficult because it's new. But you get to a point where your creative imagination and the present moment of life become one. There's no lag time between what you're imagining and what is occurring in life. And as yogis, we're meant to be living in the now. So I believe Mr. Davis, he gives us a very, very practical, step-by-step way to do this. In the beginning of the book, there are these practical exercises, reflective exercises that you can do. And I like to revisit them every few months or so, at least once a year, but every few months. And, they take mental labor. So it's like, do I have to do this? But it becomes more easeful with time. And he asks us to ask these questions such, do I fear anyone and why? What are my greatest strengths? Am I being truthful in my life and in my relationships? Am I serious about having a creative life, or am I just playing around? I love that. He gets right to the point. And so I think there's a set of, 24 questions that he has invited us to reflect upon. And so that's a really great foundation for beginning the creative imagination technique. You go through all of these questions, so you get to know your mind. You get to know your tendencies that way, so that you can then become more aware and conscious and make changes and shifts. So going from habits of things like fantasy and rumination and negative thought patterns to imagination. That's something that's available to all of us. And I really invite you to continue fostering and nurturing that. And hang around kids if you can sometimes, because they're just so free with that. It's wonderful. It's really fun to see what they come up with and what they think about. And if they're in an environment where their imagination isn't poo-pooed or hindered, it's pure magic. It's really wonderful. And so just to end before we begin our meditation, the moon goddess of today is Vani Vasini. And when I gave my first talk for Kriya Yoga Alliance several months ago, that was also the Nitya of the day. So she keeps popping up every time I give this talk. And her Shakti, she's the giver of knowledge, and she's the remover of ignorance of your true nature. So those Shaktis, it's quite a blessing for yogis, the remover of ignorance of your true nature, to know that we are the larger self. And so we'll just conclude the talk today with the Nitya chant of Vani Vasini, and then we'll begin with meditation. Aim Hrim Shrim Om Hrim Vani Vasiniye Namaha. Shri Padukam Pujayami Tarpayami Namaha. Aim Hrim Shrim Om Hrim Vani Vasiniye Namaha. Shri Padukam Pujayami Tarpayami Namaha. Aim Hrim Shrim Om Hrim Vani Vasiniye Namaha. Shri Padukam Pujayami Tarpayami Namaha. And so let's begin meditation and take a comfortable seat. Allowing your spine to be straight, eyes closed. You can take a few inhalations and exhalations at your own pace, inhaling and exhaling deeply. Exhaling fully. Allowing the muscles of your face to soften, your jaw to relax. Allowing your neck and shoulders to loosen. Relaxing your chest and your arms. Allowing your hands to soften. And softening any tightness you may be holding in your belly or your hips. Allow your thighs, your knees, your calves, and finally your feet to soften. And let's take a moment to acknowledge all Enlightenment traditions, to acknowledge the lineage of Maha-Avatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya, Sri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, Mr. Roy Eugene Davis, and all of their successors. And you can bring in any techniques that you use to allow yourself to go into deeper meditation. If you notice that your mind is drifting from thought to thought, or if you're feeling heavy and falling into a state of sleepiness, you may try to focus on Om at the center of your forehead, just above your eyebrows. Om, 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 Om. And take a moment to bring your awareness to your heart center. This is the seat of our consciousness. When we are moved by our heart, we're being led by desires that can fulfill and give us uplifting and fulfilled lives. The bija mantra, the seed mantra for the heart center is Yum. Yum, 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 yum. continue bringing awareness to your breath if you notice that your thoughts are shifting and moving. If your mind is feeling heavy, or if you're moving from thought to thought, you can take a moment to reset. Just gently open and close your eyes a few times. Take a deep breath or two, and then return. And to close meditation today, just take a moment to create awareness around the center of your heart. And with your awareness, connect it all the way up to the center of your forehead, just above your eyebrows. And from these two places, this is where we're able to manifest. And we'll close meditation with 3 ohms. You're welcome to join or simply receive. Inhaling fully. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. open your eyes and return. Thank you everyone for joining today. Most of us practice on our own or maybe with one other person, but it really is very supportive to come together at times as a group. So thank you for participating today. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. God
You're very
bless you.
welcome. Blessings to you too. Thank you.